1886. Kyrgyzstan. A Russian archaeologist is digging in the mountains near Lake Issyk-Kul when his shovel hits stone. He clears the dirt, a grave marker, ancient Syriac script carved into the surface. He reads it. This is the tomb of the believer Sanmach. Then one more word, pestilence. He sets down his shovel. He does not know yet what he has found. He will not know for another 136 years. The stone had been waiting since 1338. Sanmach was a trader on the Silk Road. We know almost nothing else about him. We do not know where he was going. We do not know if he had family. We do not know if he was the first to die or the last. We know only that someone carved his name into stone, and carved that word beside it, and then buried him in the mountains of Central Asia, 8 years before the Black Death reached Europe. That is not a coincidence. That is ground zero. Between 1338 and 1339, over 118 people from this small trading community died. In 2 years, from a single settlement on a branch of the Silk Road, tombstone after tombstone, the same word carved into stone again and again. Pestilence, pestilence, pestilence. The Russian archaeologists documented everything. They took the skeletal remains back to St. Petersburg. They filed their records. And then the world forgot about Sanmach for 134 years. The evidence sat in the archives of a museum in St. Petersburg, boxed, labeled, untouched, until a medieval historian named Philip Slavin started looking. Slavin was at the University of Stirling in Scotland, researching the economic history of the Black Death, following paper trails across archives. He found the 1886 field notes. He found the diaries and the maps. He read about Sanmach. He read the number, 118 dead in 2 years from one small community. He understood immediately what he was looking at. But understanding is not proof. A historian's conviction is not science. To prove it, he needed something the archaeologists could not have imagined in 1886. He needed DNA. The teeth held the answer. Dental pulp, the soft tissue inside a tooth, protected by enamel, protected by bone, sealed underground for centuries. Blood-borne pathogens can survive inside dental pulp for hundreds of years, sometimes longer. Slavin contacted the Peter the Great Museum in St. Petersburg, where the Kyrgyzstan skulls had been stored since the 1880s. A team extracted DNA from the teeth of 7 individuals. They were looking for one thing: the genetic signature of Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that causes plague. They found it in 3 of the 7. 3 people from a mountain graveyard in Kyrgyzstan who died in 1338 had plague. The answer was in a tooth. But that was only the beginning. At the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Germany, a team of paleogeneticists had spent years building something extraordinary: a genetic family tree of plague itself. Over 1,300 samples, modern rodents, ancient human victims, samples from across the globe, every known strain of Yersinia pestis mapped and sequenced. What they found in that data changed everything. In the early 14th century, the bacterium underwent what scientists called a Big Bang of diversification. From a single ancestral strain, 4 new major lineages suddenly burst into existence. One of those 4 was the lineage that caused the Black Death, the lineage that killed 50 to 60% of Europe's population, the lineage that produced every major plague outbreak for the next 400 years. The scientists knew the mother strain did not originate in Europe. The strains found in Black Death victims in London and Paris already differed by 1 or 2 mutations from the original. They were descendants, not the source. The source had to be somewhere east, somewhere earlier. When they compared the DNA from Sanmach's graveyard to their global family tree, they found a perfect match. Not just a plague strain, the plague strain. The Kyrgyzstan victims from 1338 carried the ancestral strain, the one that sat at the exact point of origin for the Big Bang event. They had found the mother of them all. Philip Slavin had been right. The stone with pestilence carved into it was exactly what it appeared to be. Ground zero, 8 years before the first European recorded seeing it. Now the question was how. The region around Lake Issyk-Kul sits nestled in the Tian Shan Mountains. It is a natural plague reservoir. This means the bacterium already lived there, quietly, continuously, circulating among vast populations of wild rodents, marmots, great gerbils, voles. For generations the plague stayed in the animals. The humans and the bacteria had reached an uneasy equilibrium. Then something changed. The researchers believe climate was the trigger. Unusually warm, wet springs in the early 14th century, vegetation flourishing, rodent populations exploding. More rodents meant more fleas. More fleas meant more bacteria. More bacteria in a crowded, thriving ecosystem meant one thing: opportunity. A marmot hunter kills an infected animal for its meat. A flea jumps from the dead marmot to the hunter. The flea bites, the bacterium enters a new host. And now it is no longer in the mountains. Now it is in a trading settlement on the Silk Road. Now it is in the lungs of a man named Sanmach. The caravans were already moving. This is the part that keeps appearing in nightmares once you understand it. The Silk Road did not stop for plague. Nobody knew what plague was. Nobody knew it was coming. The caravans kept moving west, loaded with goods. Pearls from the Indian Ocean found in the Kyrgyzstan graves, coins from Iran, goods from across the Mediterranean. These were connected people, international traders, men and women who moved between continents as a way of life. And somewhere in the cargo, or in the travelers' belongings, were black rats. And on those rats were infected fleas. And inside those fleas was Yersinia pestis, looking for its next host. 3,500 kilometers. From a mountain graveyard in Kyrgyzstan to the ports of the Black Sea, moved not by wind or water but by commerce, by the most sophisticated trade network the medieval world had ever built. The plague that would unmake civilization traveled first class. It took approximately 8 years. By 1346 the bacterium had reached Kaffa, a Genoese trading port on the Crimean Peninsula, wealthy, crowded, connected to every major Mediterranean port, and under siege. The Mongol army had been besieging Kaffa for months. Then plague broke out in the Mongol camp, men dying faster than they could be buried. The siege was failing. Someone made a decision. They loaded the plague dead onto catapults and launched the corpses over the city walls, bodies landing in the streets, bodies landing in the markets, bodies landing in the harbor. The citizens of Kaffa could not remove them fast enough. The bacterium spread through the city within weeks. This is one of the first documented acts of biological warfare in human history. The Mongols did not know exactly what they were doing in scientific terms, but they understood the principle. The dead were weapons, and they used them. The Genoese merchants in Kaffa understood they needed to leave. They boarded their ships. They did not know they were already infected. They did not know that infected black rats had boarded with them. They did not know that the fleas on those rats carried Yersinia pestis. They sailed for home. The ships docked in Messina, Sicily in October 1347. Port authorities came aboard to collect duties. What they found made them order the ships out of the harbor immediately. Most of the sailors were dead. Those still alive were covered in black swellings oozing blood and pus, their skin darkening as the blood beneath it died. They sailed the ships out. It was already too late. Within 5 years, the Black Death killed between 25 and 50 million people across Europe, 50 to 60% of the entire continent's population. Villages emptied. Cities became open graves. A third of the clergy dead. The agricultural system collapsed. The feudal order began its long disintegration. The world that existed before 1347 was gone. 9 years from Sanmach's graveyard to the port of Messina. 9 years from a stone in Kyrgyzstan to the end of medieval Europe. The stone is still there. The word is still carved into it. Pestilence. Not just a word, a warning, carved by someone who watched their community die, who wanted whoever came later to understand. They could not have known that 686 years later, a historian in Scotland would read that inscription and understand for the first time where one of history's greatest catastrophes had begun. The stone waited 548 years for the archaeologist's shovel. The DNA waited 136 more years for the scientists' instruments. Sanmach waited for all of it. The answer was there the whole time, carved in stone, in a mountain cemetery in Kyrgyzstan, waiting for someone to look.